think what made last week's podcast so great was talking about the market implications and then seeing Uber's reaction after Tesla. So now let's look at Waymo and Uber. And my view is, from an institutional investor standpoint, there's now like this belief that Waymo and Uber are somehow like locked and in bed, and that going forward, that the concept of a Waymo One only network, like Tesla has claimed that they want to be, is a lower probability. Not like 10%, but I would say that the market's probably like believing there's a 35% chance that it's Waymo One only as things progress, regardless of what Tesla does. And look, maybe as Tesla succeeds, it scares Waymo and they run into Uber's hands, and they're the partners that together are going to fight against Tesla. Where are you on the view of Waymo One versus Waymo partnered with Uber going forward?
I don't buy the Uber demand narrative that Dara is spinning in the market. Waymo One, in my opinion, and we have data, can generate enough demand without Uber. They don't need Uber. I was thinking about, do I take a flight up to Atlanta just to see? And it's like, well, what if I don't get the Waymo? That was a complete waste of time. Hesitancy. So I canceled my trip. I didn't book it because the hesitancy there. I want a consistent Waymo experience every time. I don't want the Forrest Gump line, life's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get, because you get bombed out, smoked out vehicles, and you get a clean Waymo. I want the consistent experience every time. And I know we harp on this. I know the team at Uber listens. I know we've gotten feedback on this. There's no consistent experience with X. There's no autonomous vehicle tier. There's no Waymo tier. Point blank, I'll say this for the record, Waymo does not need Uber.
I mean, that may be true. I think the answer is a little bit more nuanced, and from my standpoint. I'll give you an example. I finally started. I used to be like a loyal Uber customer, and Brandon, my partner at Lightshed, was always hassling me about the cost relative to Lyft. So the other day, I saw it was a ride, from the city back up into the suburbs. I checked Uber, it was like $200 something. I'm like, that's kind of wild. Let's check Lyft. Dramatically lower. And Lyft is consistently lower. And Uber's ability to charge those higher prices are in part based on, laziness, inertia, as Brandon would say, in the fact that I just open up that Uber app. I think now I'm going to flip to your side. That changes when there's a change in the product. Right now, it's like, okay, I'm in there anyway. It's the same driver. How much hassle do I want to go over? I'm not sure why Lyft isn't creating more share for being cheaper, but whatever. If we're now switching to autonomy, it opens up the opportunity for someone to shift their usage. I'll also say, going back to podcasts that I listened to this week, again, misinformation. I don't want to say it's misinformation, but I think, let's say I have a differing viewpoint on where the market is, even though there's certain people that should know this market better than anybody. When you say Uber delivers 3 to 5 minute wait times, where is that exactly? I mean, I'm going to start literally tweeting, I hit send, and it claims that the car is going to be there in 3 minutes, and then I'll time when it actually gets there. And I just don't believe that if someone can achieve 9-minute wait time for an autonomous vehicle in the near term, that's like some dramatic difference in terms of the product that you're going to use. Because if I'm in a rush, sure, Uber's promising me 3 minutes. Does it actually get there in 3 minutes? Does your Ubers in Florida get there in 3 minutes when they say it's going to get there in 3 minutes? Ever? Like, ever?
No, and I want no. Zero, zilch, nada. And I want to highlight this. Horrible. My average wait time, ready for this? 15 minutes. I have to plan in advance.
Hold on. As stated by the app or on your actual, I want to compare what the app tells you versus what actually happens.
App says 15. It's normally 20 to 22. It's horrible.
Look, that's fine if the app says 15. I'm saying that, like, if the app's saying 5 and it's going to get there in 50. Now, look, I get it. It's traffic. Like, if I'm at the airport, like, stuff happens. Like, my point is not to denigrate that they can't get there to me in 5 minutes. My point is that the consumer doesn't believe the 3 to 5 minutes. So if you say 9 minutes and you're waiting for what you expect to be a cleaner, more reliable, more consistent experience of that car, that I don't think is going to be a deal stopper, as has been suggested by those that are really pushing the rideshare industry as this indefensible demand mechanism. So, look, I 100% recognize the demand that they deliver. That's just more relevant, I believe, to a fragmented market that might include a neuro-powered car, a wave-powered car. I don't believe that's the case for Waymo. With that said, what's my view on this? I don't think Waymo has made their mind up. And that's the bottom line. So those that are insisting that Waymo is going to be with Uber, I think are full of shit. And those that are insisting that Waymo is going to do it alone are also full of shit. So let's go back to then, what do we think what is the voiced initial intentions of the company? And there was literally a podcast, another one, Grayson. I was fucking listening to podcasts all over the place. This was someone was interviewing Chris Urmson, who is the CEO of Aurora, and as many people know, was an early executive at Waymo who left, I believe, in 2016, and was asked about that. And Urmson, who, by the way, for those that don't know, Aurora, their largest shareholder is Uber. Okay, they received assets from Uber. Dara, we used to be on the board. Whatever, they have a tight relationship. Urmson in this interview was like, "Oh yeah, I remember when I was, with Dimitri, who's now the co-CEO of the company, in the early days, and we were talking about, isn't it going to be great that we'll never have to take an Uber again?" And then literally detailed the stuff that we've talked about on this podcast about cleanliness, reliability, all of those factors of why you would prefer an autonomous vehicle. He didn't say we dreamed about how our Waymos, or whatever they called the company at the time, would plug into the Uber network. He said, I think I wrote this down somewhere, but basically, wouldn't it be great if I never had to take an Uber again? So that's the initial intention of a company. And what's wild is, him actually saying this, in an interview about what was his largest shareholder. Now, granted, he was referring back to what happened in 2016, but those are the signs that I think we look for. Sorry to go on a diatribe. I know it's better to have interaction in our podcast, but let me just relate this now to today, because the inbounds are going to be like, well, things have changed, this, that, and the other thing. 100% agree. And here's what I would say on a pushback on that. When this thing goes public, when Waymo goes public, is Dimitri and Takendra going to be the CEOs of this company? Are they the ones that can show investors a path to profitability, or are they just managing a great science project to get the technology to work? And then will those new executives that take it public, and even if it's them, what's the decision that they're going to make in terms of communicating to the market a profitable strategy? Is it with Uber? Is it without? Is it, putting electronics on a Jaguar, or is it more of an OEM strategy? Sorry for the long diatribe, but what are your views on how that plays out?
It's without Uber for a very simple reason. If Alphabet does spin out, Waymo does go public, and you're overly reliant on Uber, that's an Achilles heel. So why am I going to invest in you when I could invest in Uber and have less risk? So it has to be a pure play.
The argument would be on the opposite of that, Grayson. It's a risk deflector. I don't have to worry about going out there and getting it. Exactly. Grayson, I don't know if people saw this, was waving his hand. But I agree with you, because at that point, 2 years from now, you've established, Waymo will have expanded. They will finally have gotten Hyundai ramped up, and you've established that you can create your own demand. The only issue is going to be can they have enough supply? But even the supply, they would argue is something that can be fulfilled with private ownership. And I think all of these deals are not long-term deals. We don't know. I don't know this for a fact, but from what I've read and the body language that I've seen, I don't think any of these market by market Waymo Uber deals are more than a year or two. Could be wrong.